Hi, Mark here from the Tangibound Podcast Network and host of the flagship show, the Tangibound Podcast. Did you know that we over at Tangibound are always looking for amazing podcasts to promote? And did you also know that we are also proud nerds and geeks of everything from movies, music, gaming, TV shows, and comic books to wrestling, MMA, soccer, and football? Whatever you can nerd or geek out about, we've got it. And if you're interested, we can help you find it. And if you're a show looking for a place to call home, we've got you covered. Side effects may include upset stomach, dizziness, tumors, shakes, and in some rare cases, death from excessive laughter. Though to be fair, it's only sometimes. Other side effects may include diarrhea, gallstones, heart palpitations, and strong desire for cookies on the dark side. Talk to your doctor and visit TangiboundNetwork.com and see if Tangibound Network is right for you.
Sucks to the last drop. Are you gonna blow your head off? Take good aim and don't forget to duck. Life sucks every Monday and all the way to Sunday, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I don't care how you're doing, what's up or how's it hanging. I'd like to buy this world one last drink. Life sucks all of the time. Stick it up your sunshine, and then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day. And then you'll see the clouds every day.
Welcome to The Crazy Life, everyone. My name's Jen. I'm your hostess for the evening, and I would say I'm on a roll. I've been on the show for almost a month straight. Hey? Well, with me every week, that's golf claps from the audience. With me, my consistent crew here, we got Brian and Henno. Hey, guys.
Yo. Hey.
And we've got a special guest tonight. We've got Clint joining us. Hey, Clint.
Greetings. How's everybody doing?
That's Cling. If you're a longtime listener, you'll recognize Clint from an episode we did about online dating. Forever ago.
Many, many moons.
Yeah.
Yes, many, many moons. But we had such a fabulous time. And, of course, Clint is one of our favorite listeners, so we want to make sure that we had him on again to join the fun. So why don't you kick us off, and how has your week been, Clint? How are you doing?
Well, things are actually going all right, going pretty good. Just really busy. I'm all registered for school. The semester starts on the 12th, so, right now just tracking down the book and doing all that, making sure I'm ready, all set. I was talking to a friend of mine this past week, just this guy I met on Facebook. He's a comic book artist, and he was telling me that he's trying to come up with these log lines or tag lines for a project he's working on. And I was like, well, really? I majored in English. Let me take a look at them. So he sends me what he's got. And he's like, yeah, if you got any ideas, let me know. And I just looked at him and I sent him something a few minutes later. And he's like, dude, you want to collaborate on this with me?
Fun.
I'm like, yeah, sure. So, he's showing me what he's doing. It's set up through a Facebook group, kind of like a class. Mm-hmm. And so it's going to be going through the fall. And, we've been doing some stuff for the story. It starts next week, and we've already started on a bunch of the writing. So, actually, this past week, I kind of started writing a comic book.
Awesome.
Fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah, which is something totally, well, I say totally new for me. I wanted to pursue something like this a while ago, a couple years ago, and, really, it was insecurity and fear that kind of held me back from doing it. Sure. Just thinking, okay, this is my first time. It's going to completely suck. And no, it's going to be horrible, and nope. But I decided this time, nope, I think now is the right time. I'm going to go do this, and it's going to be awesome.
That's awesome.
Really quick, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and a comedian was talking about how people asked him if he ever bombs on stage, and he goes, and he's like, of course, he's like, I just recently bombed, and the other comedian that was on with him was like, she's like, you can't get good at comedy unless you suck at it. Like you have to go up there and do bad, that way you know what to fix, basically. So, even if the story wasn't great or whatever, it's like, it's that first step,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and the fact that it's a step that I did not take before.
Yep.
And I'm going even further with it.
Which is awesome. Yep.
That is cool.
That's what
now, how's it going with anxiety? Is always a big thing of mine going back when I went back to school, or even when I was in school. How's that doing? Because it's always used to get me in the very beginning when I was getting ready for school. I would always get kind of all nervous and stuff.
Well, that's the really funny part, because this time I finally decided to sit down with the counselor and see what I was going to need. And when I went and sat down with her, it turns out that I only needed one class in order to graduate. And it happens to be Introduction to Computer Information Systems. So, like Windows, Microsoft Office, a little internet.
Yeah.
And it's like, hey, I've been doing tech support for about the past 10 years.
That is funny.
It's like, this is my bag, baby.
That's really funny. How is it that you didn't, like, the college I went to, you had to take that in your first quarter? Because the college I went to is on quarters. That way, because you were going to use those programs in other classes, to write resumes and other papers and whatnot.
Yeah.
So you didn't have to do that, though,
It wasn't required there, and
all right.
I was changing majors back then every other week, it seemed.
Yeah.
So I was never really meeting with a counselor, just because I assumed that I just pretty much had to start over. And then come to find out that I needed just one class, and I was like, sweet. But I'm actually really not feeling that anxious about it, because I'm actually taking the class online.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I'm not going to be in a classroom.
Right.
Because when I went to register for the class, I thought about going into a classroom. But when I went on campus, I will admit I did let the anxiety get to me a little bit, because since the last time I was on this campus, which was 1997, the school's changed a lot. They changed where everything is, except the cafeteria, and the bookstore, and the library. But like all of the other classrooms, all the other offices, everything is just totally different. And I was starting to feel a little anxious, just trying to find my way around, because I'm like, I used to know this place, and now it's unfamiliar territory. And I'm looking around, and everybody around there is like 18, 19 years old, and I'm walking around thinking, I am old enough to be their father.
Yeah.
Right.
And then somebody one of my coworkers was, trying to be funny. He's like, no, you want to be in the classroom, all those cute young co-eds. And I'm like, dude, I'm old enough to be their father. I don't want to be the creepy, pervy old guy in the back of the class. I was like, no, thank you.
You could sit in the front.
I'd probably have to, because my vision's horrible. I always sat in front of the class because of my vision. So.
Oh, yeah.
They have, 3 number 2 pencils all nice and sharp, lined up on the page, and
and I didn't want to be the one in the front. Everybody basically looking at me as they're looking up front either. So,
yeah.
I mean, once I saw what this class was, I was like, I could easily take this online.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, this isn't a class you really need interaction for.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And plus, like I said, this is something that's currently my livelihood.
Right. I hope you pass it, because if you don't, I mean...
If I don't, then I have a few questions that I need to answer.
Yeah. I may have a couple for you also. Like, how have you operated a computer all this time and you can't pass this class? I'll tell you though, when I took that class, Excel tripped up like everybody in the class except me and like 2 other people. Because, you're writing formulas, essentially, and they just could not get that, and I was like, this isn't hard. I don't know why you're struggling so much, but,
It's all about because it's the linear thinking.
Yeah.
I have people at work that struggle with it as well, and I keep telling them, I said, you have to, whenever you're dealing with that Excel or computers, you have to think A plus B equals C. Mm-hmm. It's all very linear. And, and from A plus B plus C equals C, you kind of branch off from there.
Right.
And if you don't tell it exactly what you want it to do, then that's where it goes haywire.
It won't do it.
But But then the problem I have is I feel very confident in Excel and the whole Office suite. But you change what version of Office suite that you're looking at.
Yep.
And all of a sudden you feel like you're, dumber than a box in a box.
I fully get that because I opened up, it's called InDesign now. It used to be called PageMaker, from Adobe. I opened up InDesign the other day and I was like, I don't know how to do anything in here. I know some real basic stuff, but I was like, this is a different program altogether, but it's different, not just a different program, but the stuff, like when I took classes before, you had way less options. All the stuff is better now. It's so much better now. So it's, it's so confusing and it's overwhelming because I'm looking at it going, I feel like an idiot. It's like this is a program that I should at least be able to go, I can figure my way around in it. But I was totally lost in it.
Oh, it kills me. The job that I'm at now, so it was about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, when I had to take an Excel test to get this job. And I'm like, oh, piece of cake, no problems. I sit down, and it's one of those where you have to maneuver around in the program to give the solution that they're looking for. So, such as they'll say, I need you to copy and paste this cell into this other cell or whatever.
Yeah.
Well, they want you to use their very specific, that's what they're looking for you to use, a very specific way of getting that information. Well, I'm used to using shortcuts and, quick keys and all this other stuff. Yeah. So I'm trying to do it my way and I keep failing because they want to see like the long paths and stuff and I have no idea.
Yeah.
You know how to do the long path.
Doing the same thing I did in algebra. I just did the work in my head. I didn't do it on paper, and then I got it wrong because I didn't do the work on the paper. So
I ended up with like a 75%, and I went into the office for my interview, and I said, first I need to say, I apologize for my Excel score because it is not indicative of where I'm at skill-wise. I promise you, I am not a 75% Excel person. I'm much better than that.
Yeah.
Thankfully, they believed me and gave me the job. But
right, yeah, because I think that's kind of the example I was given was that once you're in the program, you can noodle your way around in it and figure it out. Even if they've updated some stuff, unless they move. Like I notice in Photoshop, they'll do this sometimes where they'll completely move one of the options somewhere else, and I'm just like, where did it go? So, it's the cool part is I can just jump on Google and be like, where is this? And it'll, there'll be a picture like go to this, and then okay, So that's probably what I'm going to have to do to relearn the Adobe suite. So,
yeah, dude, InDesign would completely throw me off because when I used it, because when I first went to college, I was a desktop publishing major. Dude, that back then it was Aldus PageMaker.
Right,
it wasn't even Adobe yet.
Right. Yep. I remember because they were still making programs when I started. First started using stuff. Well, that's the other thing. For illustration, when I was in school, they allowed us to either use a program called Quark Express or Illustrator. And I preferred Quark Express, but Quark ended up getting bought out by Adobe and then basically folded into Adobe. So I'm like, oh crap, the program that I didn't focus on as much is the only program to use. I chose HD DVD.
You mini disc person, you.
I did. There were a lot of people that liked it, but it was just
hilarious.
Yeah, just Adobe's the giant in that industry. There's other programs, but whatever.
Yeah.
Well, Hanno, how are you? How's your week been?
Yeah, I missed y'all.
We missed you too.
This week, and thanks, Clint, for coming on and taking the burden of being first to share.
True.
No,
otherwise, it was supposed to be my responsibility as the person that missed.
That's true. That's all right. I'll remember next week.
Well, that's okay. I've missed more weeks than you.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah, I'd gotten a text message on Sunday during the day at some point, and it was from Sharon, basically saying that she was, horribly sick, feverish, blah blah blah, and all this, and like she couldn't get up, and she was just achy, and I'm just like, oh wow, that sounds horrible, and so I got in the house and I went and checked in on her, and I mean she just looked like just death warmed over, and she's like, dogs haven't been out, blah blah blah, and it's like I knew I was gonna need to go do some shopping and stuff, and so I sent you guys a message, but the fun part was just the whole like, so have you taken any aspirin? No. Like, okay, let's Henno needs to go into nurse Henno mode right now.
Start with the basics.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm like, okay, there's a patient here that is not taking care of herself. So I appreciate the chance to do that, because it was actually really nice. It was like, okay, I'm going to get the dogs out first. They haven't been out of the house all day long. Get them out for a walk. Then come back, I first got some aspirin in her and throw lozenges. She's like, oh, where were those? I'm like, oh, my medicine cabinet, blah, blah, blah. It's okay. Let's go to the store. What do you want? Give me your list of comfort foods, because that's where I'm at too, usually, when I get to that point.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And so I did all that, and I sent you guys a message, like I was like, oh yeah, finally done getting a chance to eat. And, I put the latest Game of Thrones on, and it's literally like the big reveal is about to happen, and my phone goes off. I'm getting paged from work. So I had to get, and the person was a little bit rude to me, and I was like, okay. So I decided to ride my motorcycle up, because just to kind of like air out my attitude a little before I got there.
Sure, good idea. Yeah.
And it ended up being totally legit. They're, nice people, all this stuff like that. I'm like, okay, let's go back home again. And then I got into work on Monday, and because it's Labor Day, I usually I'll take a 3-day week. I'll do Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then I'll work on Sunday and Monday, and I'll cover the property on Monday. And so the comments, Monday were, you got a short week, just, have to do 3 days and da-da-da. And I was kind of dragging at work, and then I went to the gym, but I really had no motivation. I did it, but I left early, and I got home, and I was just kind of, just didn't feel like in the mood to do anything. And eventually, by the time I'd kind of middle of the night at one point, I was just feeling like, oh, I'm starting to get sick too. Yay.
Hooray.
No fun.
Nope.
No, but it was totally worth it, because it was one of those things where, again, Sharon and I have chosen, we're very independent in the way we live our lives, and we respect each other's independence, and it's nice to every once in a while break that and, be of service.
Yeah.
And to say, okay, no, I need to do, I not only do I need to do this, I want to do this, which was the truth. I wanted to help her, because she wasn't feeling well and needed some help, basically.
Yeah. You tell her next time that if she's going to get sick, it can't be on podcast.
Yeah,
night.
on podcast night. I know.
No podcast night.
That's
right.
right.
Have this at all.
Yeah.
But that was, and then what was great is I decided, so I was telling you guys beforehand, we got 5 a.m, some creature was in the backyard. Jax figured it out. Then Bogart followed, and it was just all, heck breaking loose out there. And at that point, I'm like, I'm not going to work today. I called in, and it was like one of those days where I was honestly not feeling well, because I generally don't nap on the couch unless, I'm pretty much, my brain's going. I'll do something, whatever it is. And I was kind of out of it, and I'd be like, I don't feel so bad. I get up, move around. Okay, maybe not so much. And then today I got up and I'm like, I can go to work. And I got to work and I was definitely run down and not feeling well. And everyone was kind of looking at me like, yeah, you sure? I'm like, and my GM was like, my direct boss, my facilities manager, he's on vacation right now. So that was one of the reasons I went in, because I'm like, all right, I'm going to be off on Thursday. And my GM ever said it. He's like, wow, I thought you were going to go for the 5-day long weekend. I was like, nah, I couldn't do that.
It was tempting.
Yeah, I would feel pretty guilty if I did that. So, but yeah, my weekend starts now, and that's kind of nice. But yeah, otherwise, things going pretty well. I had actually really cool over the weekend. I've been, I'm keeping up with the music. I'm not killing myself with it. I'm definitely allowing myself time to, have a TV night, or, just have a goof off online night. But then I'll sit down and I'll get some work done. And I got some really great work done, to the point where I'm listening, I'm reviewing. When I take the dogs for a walk, I'll review the mixes, and I'm down to just little nitpicky things. Like, everything sounds great, or at least where I'm like, where I honestly feel like this is the best that I can do, and I'm okay with that.
Awesome.
And it's a big thing for me, because it's that's 6 songs. There's 3 others. And I mean, there's technically 5 others, but I'm only going to take another 3 on, that really make the album work like it's supposed to. And it was just a really great feeling to get to that point. And I just had one thing this weekend, though, that it's the hardest part about being an artist is dealing with my own talent or lack thereof.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And that is the hardest thing, where I'm the performer that's not quite holding their own. And I'm like, it's been on my list the whole time, and I've just avoided getting into it. and it's just one song where I have to hold some notes out, and I just didn't nail it. I just didn't. And it's like, okay, do you redo it now? Do you work with what you have? And I've been trying to use some everyone knows Auto-Tune. Auto-Tune, actually, when used discreetly, is actually a really great tool.
Yeah.
and does a good job. And so I've been I have a version of it. I just haven't really used it too much, and so I was doing that this weekend. But that one got me where I'd walk away. And it was kind of like, okay, how long do you push, and how long do you just say you step away? But that's what got me to step away for 6 months to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So to me, it's a scary thing to hit a wall like that and just go, oof, Yeah. But I'm feeling pretty good that I'll I was doing it again last night. I'm not letting it get me down. And I just want to keep moving forward. And like, everything right now is things just, life is really good right now. I've had some good fortune too, which always makes things great, or like I had a piece of a recording equipment breakdown that I've been kind of waiting to see if I can get a new replacement part for it. And my mortgage company sent me a refund on my escrow. They'd collected too much. So I was like, okay, that's nice. Nice fortune.
Yep.
And then I was like, what? I really want to go home to the Bay Area and see some family friends for their 30th wedding anniversary. And my mom and dad are like, hey, well, let us help you with the airfare. And like I've shared on this show a lot in the last year or so, which is I just said thank you.
Nice.
And I just said thank you.
Yeah.
And I left it at that, because I help them with their computers all the time, and all those things, and something about where I'm at right now, just it's nice to go, life feels good.
Yeah.
Oh, and I finally finished that freaking Henry Rollins book. Oh. I seriously, because I do digital now, and I'm looking at what percentage left, and I'm like.
There's nothing worse than having a book you're really fighting through, and you get down to 50 pages or something like that, and you're like, like you can smell, you can see the finish line, but you're just, yeah.
And it actually got really good at the end. I like where it ended up. It was their it ends with their last tour right before. This is where Black Flag breaks up after this.
Okay.
And so it's a great, if you're interested in, punk rock and what it was like, it's a solid book, but you're in a man's head. And that's why I think I kept reading it, is because it's rare that it's one thing to read someone, their autobiography, where they've had a writer. It's another thing to read someone's literally their memoirs.
See, I was going to mention that. Yeah. Because I was going to say, most of the autobiographies and stuff that come out, there's an assistant writer or a ghostwriter or something like that.
Editors.
Yeah. So the book gets a lot of the things that this book probably is, full of. It would have gotten cleaved out of there because it's, it doesn't progress the story. It's not really important, or it's just boring,
Or it's the same thing over and over again, which is a lot of it. Yeah. And that's why I think I really wanted to finish it, is because of that idea. It's like I really enjoyed. This is a great story. The Nikki Sixx did the Heroin Diaries, which is his journaling from the Girls tour and what led up to it, and his when he first time he got kind of tried to sober up and all that stuff, and it's heavy. I mean, it's really heavy, but it was. For me, it was interesting because I could reflect at that period of my life and read it. Well, it's been it's a 10 years anniversary now since that book was released, and so they're doing it's a a special deal where they're releasing so many with autographed signatures, and they've added a couple more chapters and blah blah blah. And I think that's why I wanted to get into this book too, because it also reminds me a lot of listening to podcasts, where you're in somebody else's head, but I'm reading it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so I told Neil, about it, because Neil's a giant Nikki Sixx fan. I'm like, hey, this, blah,
really?
blah, blah. And
I wouldn't have taken Neil for a Motley Crue fan. Yeah.
Nah. Yeah. Shocking, isn't it?
I know, very.
And so I go, he's like, so what are the prices like? I'm like, well, autographed copy, $100. And he's like, well, if you want, I think you should save the money and I'll send you my copy. I'm like, yeah, but will you sign it? And he says, hell yeah, I'll sign it. I'm like, perfect. I said, I will only accept this book if you sign it.
I like it. Nice.
So when I get it, I will proudly display my Neil Citrangelo signature for Dark Angels and Pretty Freaks on because I gave away my copy to somebody that I knew that it would make a difference. Somebody else that was doing sobriety.
Yeah.
Oh, and Sharon, 13 years yesterday, sober, which was awesome.
Awesome.
And
tell her I said congratulations.
Well, I will for sure. She went she went and picked up a lady that was just getting out of rehab that had nowhere to go.
Oh wow!
She did that. She took the afternoon off of work.
What a great way to celebrate that! I mean,
I know,
really,
isn't it?
That is amazing.
Yeah.
It really and it was it was a really good friend of our groomer, and Leanne had reached out to me and said, hey, there's a friend of mine and she's getting out of the Walker Center. She needs a ride to the Valley. She's not sure where she's going to be yet. Do you know anybody? And I was like, because I'm just not that. I'm not that tight with my, my sober community. I could, I put a Facebook post up right away, and I knew I got some responses immediately. But I also, called up Sharon and said, hey, anyone that you can think of, and it was like 20 minutes later, she sent me a text back going, that sounds like a thing that I should do on my sobriety anniversary. And I was like, wow, you're right. That's pretty powerful.
I agree. Yep.
And so she did that, and it's amazing. And I took the dogs up to see Leanne today, and she was almost in tears, with joy that that there's a community out there that is willing to help people.
That is wonderful.
So that was pretty cool.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's my rough 2-week catch-up.
Nice. Well, that's awesome, and congratulate Sharon for
Sure.
me. Yeah. That's amazing. So, Brian, how are you doing?
This has been a real fun week. No.
So sarcasm?
No, well, yeah. I mentioned on here last week or the week before that, I'm on a new medicine, with the others I'm on. And I started the higher dose, since we recorded last basically. And, I'm feeling like I have more energy and stuff, but, it's weird, because my anxiety's running a lot higher right now. So it's not taking much for me to hit my full mark. And, which sucks, I mean, that I don't like, but other than that, I have more energy at the moment, which I do like because like this week has been maybe one of the most productive weeks I've had in I don't know how long, essentially. Over this past week, I hooked up my drawing tablet, for the first time. I messed around with, I might have mentioned that on the last one. I can't remember. Did I? Okay. But anyway, I've, kept fooling with that, trying to get used to it, which I still haven't done. But I've, been doing body weight exercises. I've done three times so far this week. Wow. And, I skipped one day because I did squats and my knee was telling me to take a day off. So, trying to think what else I did. I had a dentist appointment yesterday, which I had a panic attack before I went, which was absolutely no fun at all. Cause I'm not one who generally gets those. It's, I'm trying to think. There was other stuff that I did too. I can't think of what it is now off the top of my head.
You talked me down from one.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I actually did that for a couple of people. It's weird because like you were saying, Henno, it's like I kind of just feel good, it's so weird because again, like I've said a couple weeks ago, it's so foreign to me, that, it feels so weird. And I'm supposed to go to a concert on, Friday, which that'll be an interesting thing because of, how my anxiety's been running higher. But, I hope, hopefully it'll leave me alone so I can enjoy myself.
Well, I think there's a lot in there that are huge wins.
Yeah.
First, you admitting to being happy-ish. For you to actually own that.
I know, that's why I said it's so foreign to me.
Yeah, that's huge. Because even if you were feeling it before, you never would have named it.
Yeah.
You never would have owned it and said, this is where I'm at with things.
Yeah. No, because I'd be expecting something terrible around the corner.
Exactly, because as soon as you put it out into the ether, you would figure that something bad was going to rip it apart.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that in itself is awesome. Number two, you're experiencing high levels of... Sorry, freight train just went through. You are experiencing high levels of anxiety, but yet you're still functioning.
Yeah.
Which is huge.
Yeah.
Because, it's so easy when you're experiencing high levels of anxiety like that to just curl up in a ball and hide away.
Yeah. And so, don't mistake what I'm saying here. I've done plenty of that.
Well, sure.
At night I've been not staying out in the living room watching TV with everybody. I've been going in my room and, playing video games or something. And even though it's isolation, I need that because it's, if I don't, I just, I feel overwhelmed and that, that's just no good. But yeah, it was nice, and like I said, and, my body absolutely hates doing exercise, but my psychiatrist was really happy today that, that's the other thing I was going to mention. I saw, I did the telepsychiatry again, and, but the psychiatrist was really happy that, I've done that kind of thing. And, and I did too, I mean, it's definitely something that, I've learned, I mean, it definitely taught me how far out of shape I am. Cause one of the first things I did was like, oh, I'm gonna, drop to the floor and hit some push-ups. Yeah. I didn't think about the fact that I haven't really done any strength exercises since I hurt my right elbow or the ligament in my elbow.
Yeah.
And yeah, push-ups were a terrible idea. I did about 5 and all of a sudden the ligament on the inside of my right elbow was just burning. And I was like, yeah, I better stop. Like, this isn't just, hey, you don't use this muscle group much. This is pain, Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, but again, with my current attitude, I didn't go, oh, well, I guess I'm not going to do any of those. I instead immediately looked up alternatives. Things I could do, like wall push-ups instead. I can do wall ones because I don't have my whole body weight. It's not on top of that elbow. I can, the weight, distribution feels different. So I can do those. But yeah, that's, that was a little disappointing, but my knees held up through doing squats and, stuff like that, which was great because my left knee is the one I tore the meniscus in. And,
Wow.
I was kind of afraid. So I was doing them real careful, but after doing the first day, I did like 15, cause I'm like, well, let's see how it is tomorrow, and the next day it felt fine. So I pushed it a little further and I've pushed it a little further. So it's, as long as it holds, I'm going to just go slow. I'm not going to I'm not going to go to like 100 or something like that, but it's been good. So
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
Dude, that's
seriously,
freaking sweet, dude.
Like what? I mean,
well, one of the biggest wins in that whole thing is that by getting the drawing tablet out, I'm essentially that's a movement towards drawing.
yeah.
Now, and something else was on the last Salty Language. Tony actually offered to go to a drink and draw with me. To where we go,
Nice.
where they
Cool.
they supply a model, you bring whatever you want to drink in your art supplies, and you sit there and draw. So we're gonna try to get that together. I don't know when. It's like the first Tuesday of every month, but I don't know if we'll do. It may be like October before we finally do it. But that's really cool because I've wanted somebody to go with me, but I didn't know who to ask because most of the people that I know are not really into drawing figures, even if they're artists, So.
And Tony's actually a fairly decent artist, with his, skills that he hasn't used in a while.
Yeah.
But, but yes, he has the background like you do.
Yeah. So so that was cool too because, that's something I've wanted to do anyway, just to keep practicing figure drawing. And it's so much better to draw from life than it is from pictures because of the lighting and stuff like that. Cause the lighting gets altered, in photos, but that was pretty
Cool.
happy
Oh,
with
man.
that.
And getting some physical exercise in, that's also that's opening another door. That's
One I
been
just
kind of
talked about a
elusive.
couple weeks ago about how I couldn't get my mindset to go that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's awesome. You're just batting 1,000, man.
Yeah, that's why I said
Awesome.
like I said, there's a lot of anxiety and depression in there, that I'm not really highlighting, but but it's been good. So
Good.
I think
Well,
that's all I got.
If you were to look at, I think, if you were to ask any of us, what is kind of an, ideal life look like? Do you really have, you want to have all those little elements in there that, where you're self-improving, but do you really think that those other things will ever be gone? Like, if you could have access to all of those things that you'd like to do and know, but I still have to struggle a little bit with, anxiety, depression, whatever it is, like, is that realistic?
Yeah, it really is, because, you know, you don't generally get over depression or anxiety. You know, you can treat it, you can work on it, but somewhere it's waiting around the corner for you. And one of the times you know, every once in a while it'll jump out and steal your wallet, you know, but you expect that. You know, that's the mindset for getting better is that you're going, okay, I'm going to have bad days, but that's okay. You know, like, you know, forgiving yourself for not doing anything that day. Those kind of things are all, you know, movement the right way. And that's basically what I've done. Like the day I took off from doing exercises, in my head, I was going, don't take today off, because if you do, you may not start again tomorrow. You know, like get a good roll going, you know, before you, and it was like, you know, and I could have done stuff that didn't really use my legs or my knee. You know, I could have just done upper body stuff, but I was just like, I just didn't feel like it, you know, so I was like, I'm going to take the day off. You know, my doctor wants me to shoot for 3 times a week at least, you know, I hit that this week. Even if I don't exercise again the rest of the week, I've hit that. So it's, you know, but I'm going to keep, you know, I plan to keep trying each day to do something.
That's how you do it. One foot in front of the other, right?
Yep. That's really it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool.
Well, with me, so my week, you know, as I've mentioned for the last few weeks on the show, you know, I've been working an exorbitant amount of hours, at least for exorbitant for me. You know, somebody else may feel they're normal, but, yeah. So I've been averaging about, you know, 60 to 65 hours a week, and, yeah, a week. And, you know, I was working 6 days a week, and it's been really dragging on me, and which I'm sure understandably so. And I finally come to the point that I sat down with my manager today, and we had a talk, and I said, you know, I need to work on getting my hours cut back. It's like, we have to put a plan in place to get me back down to a reasonable, you know, 40 to 50.
Right.
I mean, I have no problems doing some over, you know. I've never had a problem with doing overtime and stuff, but I can't keep up this pace in my personal life and, you know, and everything else that I'm doing. So, and he completely understood, you know, that by no means was this ever supposed to be as long as it has been. But, so I kind of took steps to take care of myself. Yep. And so I'm very proud of myself to kind of, I stood up and said, you know what, this is what I need to do for me.
Right.
You know, no one else but me. And, so that was cool. That was kind of my win.
Mm-hmm. And that's good. And I'm glad that, you know, like your manager was receptive to the idea. It wasn't you weren't met with resistance and kind of a thing, right. You know, but that's also because you're being flexible in even saying, I need to cut back. It's like you even said, you know, it doesn't have to be immediately, but it's got to be soon, you know?
Yeah. So the agreement is he's going to have a plan in place by the end of next week for how to kind of wean me back down and get the work manageable and help keep the work manageable. The other thing I've been really working on is not taking responsibility for things that are not my responsibility to take. So, you know, I've been kind of working on that the last couple days, because it is tough, because you want to, you know, part of me wants to control and part of me wants to lead and manage and, you know, be the puppet master of everything. And I have to understand that that is not my job. That is not what I'm tasked to do, and that is not what anyone's asking me to do. So I am not taking on extra stuff that I don't need to take on. I am plates full of all the stuff that I am expected to do without having to, you know, take on other stuff. So,
good.
So working on some little life lessons, but I'm in a really good spot. You know, even as crazy as it is, you know, working as much as I have been, I'm kind of like with you guys. It's a good time of my life. I'm having it's a good spot. I don't think I could have handled this the way I have at any other point in my life.
Yeah.
I think that any other point in my life I would be curled up in a ball. But I'm stepping up, and I've not cried once. I've not lost my temper. I've not, had any major emotional outbursts.
Right.
Which is huge for being under the stress that I'm in, because usually that is my MO.
Right. I was actually going to ask you about that because of like your bipolar. Like, has this stressed your, stressed that at all? So where you felt, but you just said you haven't, felt those.
Yeah. Today, today was a tougher day for me because I wasn't feeling very good. My allergies were acting up, which made me more irritable. And I had to censor myself a few times.
Right.
And so thankfully my internal sensors were working and were very quick today to kind of prevent me from kind of losing my cool a couple times. But, and just, I've been very big on kind of what you've said, Hannah, about is it beneficial? Is it helpful? Going down my little checklist in my head of, does it need to be said? Does it need to be said now? Does it need to be said by me?
Yeah.
And, just keeping those mantras in my head going, okay, no, it doesn't. It's, I don't have to be the one to make the schedule. There's someone paid to do that. I don't have to be the mouthpiece for people. They can speak for themselves.
Right.
I can encourage them. Yeah, I can encourage them to stand up for themselves and to speak for themselves.
Right.
It's okay for me to say, I don't know, you need to seek it out for this person. I don't have to be the one to seek out the answers.
That's right. Yep.
I can empower others to do that. And so those things, I'm really been focusing on doing that. And by doing that, I think has taken off the pressures off of my my bipolar and my moods and stuff. It's helped me regulate and keep more straight across the board.
Good.
So, yeah. I mean, and it has been. I'm proud of myself, and I can say that. I am proud of myself
and
because of how I've stood up to this and I've tackled this challenge, and I'm really happy with how I was able to perform up to this challenge.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great test for any work you've done on yourself, and it's also a great test for your dosage of medicine.
Yes.
Like, is this enough for this time? And and it seems to be, which is awesome because, as we've talked before, sometimes it can take a while to get the combinations right, so that's all great.
Yeah. And, don't get me wrong, kind of like what you said, there's still the down stuff that's there, but, Dan, or my husband, and I got into it a little bit on Sunday, and he's like, overreact much? And I'm like, yeah, that's kind of part of it, and I, reality check. I'm like, yeah, I'm holding it together, but there are some cracks forming, sure, and then the laundry fairy hasn't come around in quite the while, so she needs to make a visit, as well as the dish fairy, and so, I'm holding it together. There are cracks forming in the dam, but I'm taking actions to make sure that the dam doesn't burst.
Right.
I'm seeing those cracks form, and that's why I had the conversation with my manager. Instead of letting the dam burst, which I've done countless times in the past, I'm trying to stay actively in front of it. So,
good.
Yes.
Wow. It's fun because I'm reflecting back on when I first started podcasting with you, and you were at another job, and how you were dealing with outburst stuff on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and you weren't working 60 plus hours a week. And, it's really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
To me, like that, it's impressive.
Thank you.
Just the change. The change in all of us.
Yeah.
Is one of the reasons I love doing this podcast.
We are quite the different people than we were in the beginning, aren't we?
Yeah, and I share that with friends of mine that I can go to a weekly group meeting, and even if I go hang out with people afterwards, it's rare that I get to really see change in people.
Mm-hmm.
Not, and a lot of that just has to do with the dynamics of groups where you're not having an actual exchange of conversations. You're not getting into depth like we do every week.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't get to see it as much, and as a result, I don't get as much out of it, either from be feeling useful standpoint, and also and having that turn to me. I get very, very few people who will call me on stuff, whereas I know you will. That's because there's experience.
Yeah.
Regular routine experience, and it's amazing, and it makes me so happy to hear that everyone's learning to do life a little better.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And something that's even really cooler, I think, especially on the outside looking in, is that you guys have all of these things going on at pretty much the same time. So it's like you guys are growing together.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very
That's
true.
Yeah.
Very true. We're all on different paths, but we're all striving for the same thing. The better self.
Yeah, and that's kind of interesting that you say that, because it is everyone's story happens on a different timeline. It always will. Mm-hmm. But there's a commonality of intent, I guess I want to say,
mm-hmm.
that really, it's a team effort. It really is.
Yeah.
Like this whole it takes a village. It's like you guys are my clan. This is my tribe in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's reasons why this works.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and it is too, because we know that, even though we all have our individual support groups or systems, that we are a support system. I know that you guys are there, that I'm there, like all that stuff. So, it definitely, it helps. And the fact that we can find commonality, even though the reason that we're on these paths are different, is really cool, because, you don't feel alone in any of this, Like, even when I'm describing to you guys stuff that you don't deal with, you seem to get it, or you can, have something that maybe, is parallel to it or something like that, So that's the stuff that's been really helpful, And like Heno said, it is a check-in every week, It
is, yeah. And we can also have a lot more, empathy and compassion for each other, because we are sharing quite openly and honestly about what's going on. Mm-hmm. And so it's more, it's like, okay, if I'm working on something and you've heard me share about how much of a struggle it can be, if I'm having a hard time with it, you're going to have a better understanding with me, because it's something that's important to me, that it's been, versus, if I, it takes a long time to get to that point with a therapist.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It really does.
Yeah, it does.
Because it's just, unless you are literally going every week, but that's not that easy. And I appreciate you being on tonight, Clint, because, you've had some huge changes too that you've shared with us.
Yeah, definitely.
Not on here, but, through messages and whatever. And And, there's a reason we bring it up is because it's important. I think we all need to, to share and for lack of a better term, rejoice in our wins.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, that is so true.
I have a question for you, Clint. When you post things on Facebook that are related to rage, and I know a lot of it's in humor and that kind of stuff, I'm curious about what does that do for you? I mean, is it kind of are you laughing at yourself? Are you venting? Like, I'm just curious.
It's a little bit of both.
Okay.
Like, I like to keep things interesting and lively and, just shake it up a bit sometimes. But sometimes if I really do have something on my mind, like, if I, put it there, it relieves that burden until I can, just really talk to somebody else about it. And two, sometimes I just need to put it out there just for me to feel that burden lifted, just so I can move on with my day and just focus on other things.
Yeah, it's like it's a version of going outside and screaming.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, exactly.
It is.
It's emotionally going to the restroom.
Yeah.
Is what it's
Oh,
doing.
you're 100% right. I do the same thing with Twitter with my my depression.
Okay.
I've got a bunch of tweets that are about depression, and a lot of them I'm making fun of it, or I've got one that I wrote not too long ago was what was it? It's like sorry, man, I can't remember what it was. It was like something like sorry anxiety. There's no room in the bed with me in depression or something like that. And it's, I'll do stuff like that where I'm just kind of just making fun of it. But a lot of it is like Clint said, it's just to get it out of your head, just to flush that out. And cause a lot of times after I get that thought out, I'm like, or sometimes people reach out, which is awesome too. And I've seen people do that to you, Clint, where hey, everything okay? And,
Yeah. And I actually had a funny one today. Or a funny situation today where I put something to the effect of darkness or madness. Which one do I let out to play?
Yeah, that's
right.
that's what kind of brought it up for me is A, it's kind of fun and amusing. B, it never seems like it's an attention grab.
Mm-hmm.
But there's kind of in a way there's an invitation towards dialogue.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I was like, I want to ask Clint about that. Like, what does that do for him?
Yeah, or like last night, I put darkness, hello, my old friend.
Yeah.
Just kind of changing around the words of the song a little bit.
Right.
But at the same time, I was talking to somebody last night, my buddy Fear, and I'm like, dude, I'm kind of in my head right now.
Yeah.
So I kind of was going through a little something there, but it opened up just humorous dialogue. One of my buddies was like, dude, it's hello darkness, my old friend, get the song right. Something. Or one of my buddies texted me after seeing the one today about, letting darkness or madness out to play. And I'm like, and he's like, yeah, so which one do you think is winning right now? He's like, who's winning the poll? I'm like, darkness. I'm like, because I need minions of darkness to run around and do my bidding.
I can see that as a lot better than just staying in your head with that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
At least there is an outing of it.
Yeah, and like I said, it opens up a little bit of dialogue, and sometimes it's not even needing to talk about the problem at hand or whatever I'm dealing with or struggling with at the time. It's even if it's just through joking around a little bit, just the levity of the situation is what can just move me past it.
Right.
And my mind will just sort through the problem later. Or, maybe I had a conversation earlier and okay, now I'm more ready to take that person's advice.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know what that's like. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And
I was talking to Jared this morning about something, and he was, telling me something that I have to do. And actually, it's kind of funny because it kind of relates to what Jen was talking about with, not taking control and not taking responsibility for things that are not you.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And me just there's a situation right now where I just need to step back. Some buddy of mine just went through, a horrible divorce and just dealing with a lot of depressive things, and just kind of pretty much at the point where he's just kind of pushing everybody away at the moment.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, you can't be alone. My mind is, no, you can't be alone right now. You can't do that. You need to know you have a friend here,
Yeah.
And, we had a little verbal thing this morning, because I texted him last night and was just like, hey, dude, hope you have a good night at work. And yeah, he didn't respond well. And yeah, I talked to Jared, and he, just was kind of helping me realize, by doing nothing, and he's like, this is going to sound weird, but by doing nothing, you are being there. Because you're just waiting for him to the point that, he works out whatever he's got going on, and he knows that you are there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, I know it's your tendency to want to try to rush in and fix people and try to,
Yeah, sure.
and try to help with that. I'm like, yeah. He's like, but you can't do that here.
Yeah. Sometimes
Cool.
it's tough to put down the cape.
Yeah.
We all be superheroes and rescue the world, but
Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta put the cape away, just walk away for a minute, just let the world be, and it'd be okay.
Mm.
It's tough. It's hard.
Yeah. Can I keep the tights, though? These are looking really good.
The tights make my butt look great, let me tell you. No. So what we're going to talk about today is, it's going to be a little bit of a longer show, but that's okay. We're going to talk a little bit about heartache and relationships when they go south. How do you mend a broken heart? There's many a song about this topic, and so pick your genre, pick your style of music. You can find heartache and heartbreak and relationships falling apart all over the place. But I think it's really important that we take a look a little bit more at the feelings behind the breakup. Because breakups don't just happen. Usually there's at least one person, most likely two people involved in making the breakup come to fruition. That being said, I think we all need to own our roles in it, but also understand our emotional response to it. One of the things, I found an article on Psych Central. Highly recommend this website, folks. A lot of articles that we talk about have roots there. So it's Psych Central. 10 tips to mend a broken heart. One thing that they talk about is go through it, not around it.
Yep.
One of the most difficult tasks for a person with a broken heart is to stand still and feel the crack. There's no shortcut without its share of obstructions. You have to grieve in order to move on. Now, grieving is an interesting topic because you don't really think about grieving when you do, because you think about grieving the relationship and stuff like that, but in grieving missing the person and stuff. But you also have to grieve all of your memories and all of your future plans that you've had with this person. All of that goes away. So there's so many different levels to that grief that you have to kind of go through. And the key is go through it, not around it. Because so often it's so easy to put it in a box, stick it in the back of the head, and just say, you know what, I'm just going to go. I don't know. What do you guys think?
That really goes for any loss. I mean, realistically, is go through it, not around it. You know, if someone close to you dies, don't just avoid everything. You know, allow yourself to grieve. That kind of concept too. You know, so it's not just in a relationship, but in anything. I think, you know, that's just good advice. Plus, realistically, those times are what forge us. You know, those fires are definitely what forge us. You know, because you go through, you come out the other side, and you go, I'm strong enough to deal with this, and then, you know, that kind of a thing. You know,
that's true. They say that's the moment when the healing begins.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I have a friend right now that's going through divorce, and we were just talking about this recently. It's just, you know, be in the feelings.
Yeah.
Don't run away from them. Don't avoid them. And it's taking conscious effort to do so. Mm-hmm. But, you know, we were discussing about how the rewards are there when you can actually be in the feelings, you know, and that was one of the things that I had a breakup where I had that moment of realization where I just realized that, I have a broken heart.
Yeah.
You know, and it was odd to have such a simple thing, because prior to that, I was confused. I was uncertain. I just felt like this was going to go on forever. And when I finally just had this little moment of, you know, this little like light bulb goes off and some acceptance, and it was like, oh, yeah, I have a broken heart, and that's what this feels like, and so this is normal. Okay. You know, and it was weird how, like, okay, now I can move on.
Yeah.
Identify and, you know, digest and move on.
Yeah.
It's so strange how I just didn't, like, it's like I was looking for the workaround. I was looking for the exception. I was looking for the, you know, the loophole.
Yeah. The quick
and
fix.
There is none. There's just what you're feeling.
Yeah.
You got to go through it.
Well, and if you just repress things or you avoid them, it'll come back up and bite you in the butt somewhere down the line. So you might as well just face it now, you know?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Absolutely.
So true.
Well, the next one that they talk about is detach and revel in your independence again. This is harder than it sounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's an easy read, but it's really hard to detach. But attempting to fill the void within yourself by running into a new relationship or trying desperately to win the lover back is essentially what detaching is all about. The most direct path to happiness and peace is detachment. The Buddha taught that attachment to that leads to suffering. So that, you know, yes, attachment leads to suffering, but attachment's also necessary for life. I mean, I truly believe that you have to attach to other people and other living beings and stuff for you to be truly fulfilled.
Yeah,
you know, we're not meant to be lonely. This
is basically saying give it some space. Let it,
exactly.
You know, let it breathe. And, you know, and like you said, even though you're going to attach yourself to other things, don't replace, like it said, don't run into another relationship. Don't, you know, that way you're not just replacing a person with a person and going, oh, okay. And, you know, it's all fixed now. That's, you know, that generally doesn't work out well. Sometimes it does. But.
And I think the part of the detachment process is recognizing truly what you're feeling. Like you said, Hanno, you know, you had to come to terms with the fact that this is what a broken heart feels like for you. You know, no one can tell you what a broken heart feels like because, you know, for each person it's going to be different.
What are you talking about? But, again, you said there's tons of songs telling us about broken hearts.
Each person feels it a little bit differently.
Yep. Well,
it's never going to be exactly
that's why
the
there's
same.
so many, is so that we can all find one to identify with.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But also, keep in mind, folks, there's a lot of ego involved in relationships. And a lot of... So, you not only do you have your heart and your, you know, love emotions, but you also have your ego involved. And a lot of times, if you really stop and think about things and your role and their role and why things went down the way they went down, you can identify that there might be some stuff you could have done better. There might be stuff that you didn't do good enough. stuff that you did great, of course. Everybody has goods and bads. But also, are you hurting from your ego or are you hurting from your heart? In making that identification can help with that distancing and detaching from the relationship. Because if you realize, when push comes to shove, that maybe the relationship wasn't really all that wonderful and you're kind of relieved to not be in that relationship, but it still hurts the ego because you feel like you failed at something. And
or
it
you
hurts
feel
the
rejected.
ego.
Yeah.
That they didn't want you. And the ego hit of if they found someone else before you found someone else. So make sure you kind of take a look at both sides of things and try to really work hard to identify what you're truly feeling. And, like in Hannah's case, sometimes it's a broken heart and you just got to heal it.
Yeah, I had that exact experience where I was in a relationship and it just wasn't working. Neither one of us were happy. And I was definitely not happy. And it was a very difficult separation, but I knew it was the best thing to do.
Yeah.
There was just something not right. Okay. And so afterwards, we had that period of time where it's interesting that the idea of attachment, there were still things that had us attached. Cause, it's very difficult for people to just completely cleanly split in most cases.
Yep.
True.
There's always residual stuff and there were some things that was allowing me to stay attached. And, but for the most part, I was okay. Everything was fine. Until I found out that she started dating somebody. And I have no idea why, but my brain decided to go completely loco. And the only thing it is literally ego.
Yeah.
And it and everything else in there waking up and nothing that there was nothing that made me feel like it was odd how I went from, I'm ready to move on. This isn't working, blah, 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 to all of a sudden, like, literally I made up a fantasy. My brain made up a fantasy of what was never there.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It was wild how it switched where all of a sudden, and the best, I've shared this before, and it was the best thing is that, it's that I was mourning the loss of what could have been.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But all of a sudden that became very important. And what really wasn't any longer. Because the truth was that things weren't working right. They never were going to.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you have all the bargaining and blah, 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 and you have all the stuff, right, that you go through in a grief process. But that it was so clear to me, long time later, that I realized that it was like that the ego got in the way. Mm. And that's why I didn't realize I had a broken heart. I'd had that broken heart from the beginning, but I never really had to deal with it because I was like, oh, well, this is just a mutual split. Everything's fine, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
But to see the person that you've been with for a number of years within less than a couple of months get involved with somebody else was like, whoa. It was just kind of out of the blue.
Yeah.
Which is,
yeah, they have the right to do that.
It shouldn't, exactly, because I walked away, but it's like, there's everyone has their own way of processing.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't process that quickly. She evidently could.
Yeah.
Which it doesn't matter. It's not right or wrong. None of it matters.
Well, in circumstances, right? You just never know. They just happen to meet someone before you or whatever. It just happens,
And they've been friends for a long time.
Yeah. Well,
and so it was somebody that I knew, and I was like, oh, wow, cool, awesome.
Yeah. Well,
yet something in my own brain subconsciously had a real issue with it.
Oh, yeah. Well, there's another element to it, too, that's, when you talk about the mourning things, is I think when you break up and then you see the other person with another person, it finally 100% in your head basically is done. There's a finality to when you see that, versus, when you're just together, or not together, but, when you're both separate, but you're not with anybody. And, I think there's that element to it too. And I think it's a lot of people don't think about that, in that moment, because you're hurt, feeling rejected, or, like you said, Henno, your brain just went crazy about it, whatever it was. It's just, it's tough to process sometimes, especially because you're right in the middle of it.
Yeah. Perspective and logic are very strong tools to be used, especially during high emotional times. If you can try to gain perspective, a higher viewpoint above the situation, it's helpful.
That's the detachment.
Yeah. Exactly.
Right? That's true. And that's what you nailed is I could not achieve that, because I think we like you were saying, we attach ourselves to the people in our lives, but there is a level of unhealthy attachment. This is what got me into, reading Codependent No More, and getting involved with, Coda 12-step meetings, was because I had created an unhealthy attachment.
Yeah.
If I'm creating a relationship in my head that didn't actually exist, that's not healthy. That was really where you just nailed it, Jen. I mean, that's the real thing, is you're in something that doesn't even exist.
Yeah.
And as someone that has now been through it, and this was my first relationship in sobriety, it's like, I had done this for years before drinking, but it wasn't as clear to me because, well, booze.
Right. Yep.
I finally had to deal with it directly, because I was not proud of how I acted and how I felt. I didn't handle it with much grace,
right,
or dignity. And so when I see it in others, I have a huge amount of compassion for them, because I know what it was like for me, to do that. And I've seen close friends go through it now, where I'm literally like, okay, you are making stuff up.
Yeah.
That is just not true. Suddenly there's this, and it really comes down to that. It's like your ego has decided to speak up beyond logic.
We've talked a bunch on this show in various episodes about how the ego is really, it's our enemy in a lot of ways, It's
a strong part of us.
Yeah.
I will say, I told a friend of mine this, to help get that perspective and to help break through some of those happy clouds that we like to bring into our memories, to cloud things up a bit.
Yeah.
I mentioned to her, because she was talking about trying to get back with her ex, that she left. And I said, okay, why did you leave? And she's like, well, I don't really remember all that much. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
That means she didn't want to tell you. Yeah.
Remember me.
You don't remember. Knock it off. There's a word I would normally say right there, but we're PG, so I won't. I'll just say
I'm calling shenanigans.
Yeah. It's BS. We'll just go with that.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, well, let's refresh your memory here a bit. Here's X, Y, and Z. That's the biggest issues that you had with him. Has X, Y, and Z changed? Has he fixed these situations? Has he done anything to work on himself to make these things better? Or given any indication that X, Y, and Z won't happen exactly the same way that it happened this time?
Or are you willing to accept them? Yes. You get over it,
Yeah, exactly. And the answer was no, she wasn't willing to accept them. And no, he hadn't done anything to change and or make things better. I said, okay, so what makes this time going to be different? Oh, but the good times are really, really great. Great. But the bad times are really, really bad, or else you wouldn't have left. So unless you are, so at this point, you have to stop and think. And like I kind of told her, and I just told you guys, I said, you have to stop and think. It's like, oh, okay, what is hurting here? You left him. Is it your heart hurting? Is it your ego hurting? And she came to the term, she gave it some thought, and she came around to the fact that in her case, it was the ego. Mm-hmm. She wasn't missing him per se. She was missing a him.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. She didn't want, that specific guy. She was just missing being in a relationship.
Yeah.
And her ego was hurting because she didn't find love right away like she was hoping, and that he did, which she was happy for him, which sure. But, it's a tricky thing because everything is intertwined within us. Our ego, our personality, our mental state, our feelings and emotions, everything's intertwined and they're all connected. So when you look at one, you have to look at the others as well.
I think that it's such a challenge especially I hope I don't have to deal with it again, but if I do, like I've always said, I just want to, I will deal with grief again.
Yeah.
No matter what.
Yep.
All right. And I just want to, my main thing I've always said is I really want to handle it with better grace and more dignity.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I want to have more restraint of tongue and pen. I want to do, it's almost like I wish I could just, until my emotions come back to a normal level, I kind of feel like I need to be thrown into a straitjacket and gagged.
I will say though, there is sometimes that that you need to be passionate and just let it go. That you have to step outside, even though you may make a fool of yourself, even though it may not be who you idealize to be, what your ideal person would be. But sometimes you just need to, wail and cry on the coffin and, and throw a temper tantrum and stomp your feet. Mm-hmm. Say it's not fair, because it's not fair, and it sucks. Grief sucks, even if it's not about death, even if it's just about relationship and that type of stuff. But yes, grace and dignity, we all hope to have that all the time. But sometimes it's overrated.
Yeah, but my big issue is and this is the part that I really just, when I reflect on it in the past, is, and I'm not going to blame anybody, but man, I kept having the same conversations with people over and over and over again. Somebody should have smacked me upside the head and been just like, enough.
Right.
But
See,
and that
that's
happens too.
That's where you need that best friend that when you do that, they'll go, dude, it's you.
Yeah, exactly. Well, luckily, luckily, eventually I did have somebody, and my poor band. I mean, they had to, we rehearsed multiple times a week. They had to hear this crap all the time.
And I was coming in writing sad songs and
and eventually, at least an outsider friend's like, "Hey, I've already told you, given you a couple of suggestions. Maybe you should try one of them and shut them."
See, that's how you know that someone's a good friend, though.
Exactly.
Because in those moments, you don't need fluffing, you don't need the coddling, you don't need the you're better off without them garbage. What you need is for them to look at you and be brutally honest. Because it's the only way you're going to move forward. You know, like when you're like, yeah, but the highs were so good, and it's like, you remember this? You remember this? you know, start reminding them maybe of bad things and be like, you know, like it wasn't all peaches and roses, you know.
That's true.
Yeah. But letting it go can be just very, very therapeutic, though. Because I remember there was a relationship that, for me, ended in the very early part of last year. Actually, it was right after Valentine's Day. And I was pretty crushed by it. Mm-hmm. And I don't know what convinced me, but I was like, I'm going to record a podcast. I'm going to just sit in front of a microphone, turn it on, and just see what happens.
Yep. I remember that. I think I talked to you right before you did that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it was a little scary. Well, no, it was a lot scary.
I actually couldn't listen.
Because
it really hit home for me.
Well, I just remember after doing it, because at first I'm going into it thinking, oh my god, I'm just going to sound so like weak and pathetic, and you know, I like beforehand I was sitting there listening to a playlist that I made and Spotify, and I'm like,
just getting deep.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, he's crying into the bucket of ice cream and
well, no, I can't do that. I'll put myself in a coma.
Yeah, I know. I'm messing with it. Yeah, it can be sugar-free ice cream, Clint.
This is true. This is true. But no, I just remember afterwards. There was like, you know, like we said earlier, just kind of when the healing can start. That was the moment that I kind of started to feel better about everything, and once everything finally started to hit home a little bit. And then I remember after the episode posted, which I had a lot of anxiety over doing.
Sure.
I remember getting a retweet, like a notification for a retweet, and somebody had put, when they shared it, they're like, wow, real, introspective, and raw. This is what real podcasting should be. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, apparently I connected with somebody. And
it's weird because you just never know, you know? I mean, it's totally relatable, though. Just about all of us have gone through something like that. And, you know, and we've all been there. Just most of us don't do what you did, which is to put it all out there. You know, that's
and
a big move.
It was scary as heck.
Yeah.
I admit it to this day, like, I cannot go back and re-listen to it.
Yeah. I felt the same way when we started this podcast.
Yeah.
Is that by me being as honest as I am about stuff, I was really, and even now when they see that I, you know, have a podcast or something, when I'm recommending this one, I'm so nervous when I do it, because basically by telling someone to listen, I'm essentially letting them in, because I've put so much out there, you know, so it makes me feel very vulnerable every time I recommend the show to somebody.
Yeah.
One of the scariest moments the other day, a lady I work with said, "Hey, I caught your podcast the other day. I listened to it." I'm like, "Well,
yeah."
But she said, "Wow, you guys are really honest." I'm like, "Yeah, yes, we are."
Right.
Yep, but you gotta be, because
there's no other way to be.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You just gotta be. You gotta be honest. You gotta be straight.
Because if you're not, then you're not dealing with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly, and that's what you did on that podcast. You know, you faced it and you walked right through it right there as you were recording. You know, you were just walking right through the fire at that point. And like you said, afterwards, you got it all out, or, you know, a lot of it out, whatever, you know, and that allows you to, you know, start, like you said, start healing. So that's,
Yeah. The thing that put the final nail in that coffin, though, was kind of like when you, Henno, were mentioning, kind of seeing somebody in the new relationship. Because she and I were going to try the Let's Stay Friends thing. Mm-hmm. And I woke up one morning getting ready for work. I had a little extra time. So, of course, I pull up Facebook on the phone, and I see, like, first thing in the feed, so-and-so is in a relationship, complete with picture of them kissing. I'm like, yeah, I'm done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was
like, I'm officially over this.
Nice. I actually had this conversation a little bit with somebody the other day. We were talking about a Let's Stay Friends situation. And I was like, it's funny to me when people do that, because if you're the one that left, it's easy for you to keep being friends, essentially, because you're the one, but the person who gets crushed by the whatever, and you're like, hey, I know I just completely ruined you emotionally, but can we still be pals? And it's like, no! Like, maybe down the road, but right now, no! Like, I need to heal. I need you out of my life to get over you, and I need to heal, and I know so many people, though, that'll be like, yeah, let's stay friends, and most of that is that ego doing what Henno was talking about, making things up, because it's probably like, well, if we stay friends, maybe, there's elements of that. I've known people who've done that. Be like, well, I want to stay friends, but that way, the door's not completely shut. And I'm like, shut the door. The door can be reopened. It's amazing how that can happen.
Yep.
Shut the door.
and that's the truth. Like with my experience, there were things that I kept around for connection that I just wanted to. I felt like I should be able to handle it.
Yeah.
Evidently I couldn't. The interesting thing is, and this is where I saw reflected in a friend of mine's relationship, they were all things that I ended up using as a sword to stab the other person.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that really made me question my motives for that kind of stuff. And so when, a good friend of mine was asking me for advice, and I was like, okay, you need to, these things that you have financial ties together. They need to be eliminated right now.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know what's going to happen. It's going to it's going to end up being used as a tool.
Yep.
One against the other. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, 6 months later, they hadn't dealt with it. And it's like, and when he was so angry about it, I was like, no, that's on you.
Yeah.
You have to own this 100%. That was your choice. You don't get to be angry about it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the situation is horrible, but guess what? That was your choice. Mm-hmm. You made a choice not to separate.
Yeah.
Not to do that thing. And I really think it's hard for us to do things that we just don't feel like we should have to do. Oh, I should be able to handle this, no problem. This shouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that reminder of like, our emotions are not always our best friends. They're there for a reason.
Right.
I mean, this whole idea of fight or flight and all that stuff, we're still creatures of,
yeah.
Down inside, It's like, there has not been enough evolution quite yet.
Right. Well,
right?
And, the other thing too is like you were saying, like with a financial thing, it's like, look, at some point, if you're not together anymore, it's like you're going to go separate paths probably at some point, especially like if you don't have kids or something like that, where there's nothing where you kind of have to stay in their life. A lot of times you'll end up in another relationship, or they will, and you don't talk very much. And it's like, so you're just better off just getting out of that anyway and just, just moving on for awkwardness and all that kind of stuff.
Well, our next item on the list is help someone else. When I'm in pain, the only guaranteed antidote to my suffering is to box up all of my feelings, sort them. Keep that in mind, folks. Box them up, then sort them. Then try to find a use for them. That's why writing Beyond Blue contributes a big chunk to my recovery. When you turn your attention to another person, especially someone who is struggling with the same kind of pain, you forget about yourself for a split moment. And let's face it, that on some days it feels like a miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the thing is it's very difficult to be self-absorbed when you're in a state of gratitude, and it's very difficult to be self-absorbed when you're being of service to others.
Yeah.
It's just a fact. I had a hard time accepting that fact and putting it into practice. Yeah. I hope next time I'll take a lesson from that, because I know people that have done that where they've been in a horrible place and they've thrown it out there. You know, they've literally filled their lives with service to others in order to stay out of their own head.
Yeah.
And not be selfish and basically a big baby. And you know, those are people that are an inspiration to me, and I hope that someday I can do that myself.
Yeah. It is, and it's a good distraction too, because you get so in your head sometimes after like relationships end, you know, because like me, I'm such an overthinker that, you know, I could easily get into a cycle that just doesn't end for a long time. So doing stuff like that, like you said, it puts you right here, you know, right in that moment, and you're no longer looking backward for mistakes or whatever, you know, you can kind of, you know, just snap you out of it for a minute or, you know, for a day or whatever it is, you know.
It's all about perspective.
Yeah.
You know, helping yourself get back into the perspective, into the reality.
Yeah, and you know what the thing, you know, kind of touching back on the last line, these are the ways that you can have moments of clarity and sanity, basically. Because, you know, there's a reason why, you know, songs and poems equate emotions with sanity, because it's pretty darn close sometimes, you know, like when I got out of it finally, when I had those moments of clarity, it's like, okay, well, that's crazy time going on right now. I mean, you know, it's like I got the monkey off the bat, but the circus is still in freaking town, you know,
So true.
and I just needed to get out of the tent for a second.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, and being in circus is an opportunity to get out of the tent.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And go, God, why am I on the freaking, you know, why am I still riding this elephant?
Yeah.
Why is the elephant riding a giant ball in the middle of my living room?
Yeah, exactly. Why am I participating in this actively?
Yeah.
There's a phrase that's actually not my circus, not my monkeys.
Yep.
I'll have to add that one.
Yeah, it's not my circus, it's not my monkeys.
Yep.
You know, and it's that, you know, breaking away and saying, you know what?
Well,
that needs to be left alone.
One of the things we haven't really touched on in all of this too is we've talked before about how freeing letting control go is, letting control, you know, giving control back or just letting go of having to control a situation. And, there's a lot of it with this too, because you're really trying to control things after, you know, to some extent. And, you know, the sooner you can let go of that control, like you really look at the fact that you can't, fix it. You can't, you know, and again, there's nothing wrong with looking at your part of what happened so that you can grow from that. But at some point you have to go, nothing I do now will change the fact that this has happened, you know, and then you have to let that go. And that'll, you know, it'll be amazing how freeing that is, because that's one huge thing you won't be worrying about anymore.
And the last thing on the list is laugh and cry. You know, we've all, I would hazard to say, I would speak for you guys, but we've all had those moments where you just have to cry, and you just have those moments where you just have to laugh.
Yeah.
And the combination of using them both in the, you know, it makes a difference. You know, that's why romantic comedies are very popular. Because it just gets downright funny. Life is comical, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think everyone has that opportunity where you're like, okay, do I want to view this as a comedy or as a horror?
Yep.
What's my viewpoint today?
Yeah. Or what was it? I just read someone said the other day on something, there was something real similar to that, but talking about turning a drama into a comedy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. We can have this tragedy or a comedy.
Yeah.
I think the best example of that is Romeo and Juliet, folks, is a comedy. Is listed as a comedy. Shakespeare wrote it as a comedy of errors, but a comedy.
Yeah.
Yeah, nonetheless.
Wow.
Mhm.
Oh, and that was the one thing I wanted to bring up with the whole. This goes along with it too. Great indicator for the whether your ego is getting in the way, or whether you're not seeing it as a comedy is when you've established yourself as the victim.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's a great. I mean, anytime that's been pointed out to me, it's like anytime anyone says, "Huh, sounds like you're the victim here." And as soon as I say, well, you're darned right, oh boy.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
Yeah.
That's a choice. The victim is a choice.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's some line about, being a victim or a volunteer, or is it something about like victims are volunteers or something like that? Because that's a choice.
Yeah.
And it's a great way of checking of whether self is getting involved.
I've had that conversation with multiple people before. Is the taking advantage is a big one. I'm taken advantage of.
Yeah.
Are you? Or are you letting someone take
Yeah.
advantage of you?
Right.
It's that. It's how are you looking at this, and what is your ownership to it, and is it all about you? Or is the big picture that you are doing too much and you're giving too much and you're allowing someone to have your power?
Yeah.
That's what the phrase is there are no victims, only volunteers. And that's what you're just describing.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly. And you have to stop sometimes and just go, okay, step back.
Yeah.
Is it really all about me? Or is there a bigger picture all in this?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
No, it's all about that perspective.
Yep.
That nasty P word. That's now in my lexicon. That nasty P word. But, well, guys, I don't know. What do you think? I think we did a pretty good conversation.
Yeah, I think ended that one solid.
I have one more thing to add real quick, which is we talk on here. I talk about going to therapy and stuff, and that can be a huge help with this kind of thing too. Like if you realize that you can't seem to move forward, you don't, like Henno and I were talking the one night, and he was like, a lot of people don't realize, it's like therapy doesn't have to be for 5 years or 10 years. It can be for like 3 months, long enough to just help you get, where you need to be, and then you quit going. Cause therapy, you dictate how long you're in therapy, So as a result, it's, don't overlook that as a way to help if you just can't see a way out of, the heartbreak or whatever, cause it may help you with perspective or reframing or whatever it is that you need.
Exactly. Well, with that, if you guys want to continue the conversation with us, if you guys want to jump on board and, like Clint did today and sit in on one of our shows with us, we welcome you. So please reach out to us. You can reach me on Twitter at Jen's Crazy Life, and that's Jen with a G. You can also reach us at our website at thecrazylifepodcast.weebly.com, or you could reach us via email at thecrazylifepodcast@outlook.com. And Clint, how can they reach you if they want to talk with you some more?
Well, you can reach me on the Twitter at Vengeful Jedi, or you can always hit up the Geek Dig podcast. Go to geekdigpod.com. There's an email form right there, or just the geekdigpod@gmail.com, and that has all of our info and links, and you can find me anywhere there.
Awesome. And you, Henno?
You can find me on Twitter at Ida Henno. Find me on Facebook, Henno Heiter. And I also want to say thanks, Clint, for joining us. It was fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, thanks again for having me. This was a lot of fun. This was great.
Glad to have you.
Mm-hmm.
And Brian?
I can be found, or actually, the other show Twitter account can be found at The Crazy Life Pod. I can be found on Twitter at Stunami. My other podcast can be found at salty_language or at saltylanguage.com. It's very not safe for work. If you want to check out our Facebook group, that's at facebook.com/groups/crazylifepodcast. There's a lot of good resources in the notes section on that. If you need numbers or some, help finding a therapist or whatever, there's some good resources in there. We're part of the Tangent Bound Network, which can be found at tangentboundnetwork.com. So head over there and maybe check out some of the other shows. Yeah, that's all the links, right? Yep. And, so this is the part where I remind you that we're not doctors or therapists or trained professionals. We're just four people this time sharing our experiences and thoughts. If you find that you think you need help, please seek it out. Don't be like me and wait 20 years. Boy, I just lost my train of thought. Anyway, so, and if you feel as though you may harm yourself or others, please reach out to someone so that you're not alone. Whether it's calling one of the hotline numbers, the suicide prevention hotline number, or, calling a friend or whatever, if you get someone to take you to a hospital and tell them you're having a mental health crisis, or that, you feel as though you may harm yourself. Oh shoot, I totally lost it again. Man, I'm just blanking tonight.
Fine.
Yeah. Anyway, but please don't, do anything to yourself or others. And if you realize that you're planning doing something like that, or you're writing like a suicide note or something, that's the best time to reach out, because, reach out before it gets too far along. Yeah.
Awesome.
And then, no, that's it. Man, I can't remember anything tonight. I'm just brain dead. The last part is, I always mention, reach out to somebody. You never know, by just reaching out, saying that you love them or you appreciate them or you're thinking about them or whatever, it might make their day, or, it may save their life.
You never know your power, folks. You have so much power. You'll never comprehend how much power that you have. And make sure you use it wisely and use it purposefully, intentfully, and wiggle your toes. Smile. Have a good week.